the recent erosion or presence of water, liquid water on the surface, and many of the images show what appear to be fossil organisms, marine fossils.
Right, fossils on Mars, and not just a few. Schultz says the planet is littered with them.
Right now, the planet has extremely thin air, very tough living conditions, but it is wet on the surface in many areas, and it is covered with fossil remains from marine organisms. Some of the fossils we found are seashells, and very clearly they are identical to the things we'd find on the Earth. This is a conch shell, apparently, found on the planet Mars, and this is one on the Earth. And you can see there's an absolute identical appearance to both of them.
Schultz showed me picture after picture.
This is a trilobite fossil.
All NASA images.
Opportunity, the rover found on the 158th day of its imaging.
And all of them compelling.
This clearly looks like water flow to me and mud.
It is.
The rover, the Opportunity, these Mars crafts that have gone up there and literally have gotten stuck in the mud?
In many cases, yes.
Schultz's research has the potential to change the way we think about the universe. He's written numerous articles for scientific magazines and books on the subject. The latest is A Fossil Hunter's Guide to Mars. In it, he carefully lays out his research and conclusions.
NASA explained your findings.
Actually, they've ignored it. In the beginning, when I began posting a lot of my information and sending it to them as well, there was some interest, and my website had hits from 40 to 90% from Mars researchers, NASA particularly, and other agencies. But over time, the died off and there was no response. So they actually pretty much ignored what I posted.
NASA Director Charlie Bolden won't speculate on the potential for water or fossils on Mars, but he's hoping the next rover mission, Curiosity, will answer those questions once and for all. It takes off this November. The first data is expected by the fall of next year.
We expect to make discoveries with Curiosity. I don't want to, set great expectations. What we find will be different from what we found before. It will look at the soil of Mars. It's looking for any signs of microbes or microbial life there. It's absolutely incredible what it's going to do.
And when I pressed him on Schultz's claims of fossils on Mars,
I don't know. I wish I could say yes, I do, but I don't know. I really don't.
Bolden referred me to a NASA scientist who's been working on the very same subject.
This activity, especially the fact that it's going on today, to me says that the mid-latitudes of Mars are one of the more remarkable places in the solar system.
Phil Christensen is well known for his work on Mars. Remember that December '06 announcement of water on Mars? Well, Christensen was there, and NASA's conclusions were supported by his research.
NASA's goal, long-term goal, is to land on Mars, collect rocks, and bring them back to Earth so that we can examine them in laboratories here under microscopes and look for any evidence of fossils or any other evidence of ancient life on Mars. I'm very confident that that rover will make discoveries that will really change our thinking. Again, every time we look, we find an interesting place. There were clearly environments on Mars billions of years ago that were very much like the Earth. And, it's very possible that life may have started there. Again, that would be a fantastic discovery, and that could be coming in the next year or so.
I think that they have been ready with this for a very long time. The first researchers on the mirror teams, the rover teams, included an oceanographer, a marine biologist who was looking at the images. And that's very telling in its own right.
Schultz believes disclosure will happen next year once the rover sends images back to Earth. It's something he says could have happened sooner, but didn't because of religious beliefs.
Many people allow their beliefs to dominate regardless of the facts. And it's not a stab at religion. This is just a presentation of the facts. People who have faith find a way to live with the facts.
You're dealing with science.
That's absolutely correct. You have to work with science and facts.
Is there life on Mars right now?
I do believe so, because nothing we know of would have sterilized the entire planet. Funguses, spores, bacteria could very easily still be in the soil today.
Well, despite his research, Schultz says he's not the person who first discovered life on Mars. He said that honor belongs to Viking mission scientist and current Arizona State University professor, Dr. Gary Levin. Levin believes he discovered microbial life from the soil samples taken from the 2 Viking missions from the 1970s. But NASA has never embraced those findings. Well, a huge announcement from NASA today. Their scientists believe water is flowing on the surface of Mars, and it's believed to be salt water, which could still theoretically sustain life. NASA says striking new images from the mountains of Mars may be their best evidence yet of flowing liquid water. Those images appear to show some sort of water flow on the Mars surface. Now, if true, NASA says this has profound implications in the search for extraterrestrial life. But today's NASA announcement is nothing new for a Winnsboro man. Charles Schultz has been studying the so-called red planet for years, and back in April, he told News 19 viewers that there's microbial life and water on Mars. He believes NASA has known this for years and is releasing the information a little at a time.
Little by little, the information is being given to the public to sort of prepare them for what's to come. The flow of water and the creation of mud is very common on the planet Mars, even today. And this mud flow is terraced. It's in layers, just as you'd expect in any place where the water's flowed. You can see how it's moved around here. And this is actually the geyser that probably was the source of that water. For 45 years, we believed Mars to be as dry as the moon, and yet constantly we're given information that tells us that's not so. It's loaded with water and mineral resources. It's another planet just like the Earth.
If you remember our story back in April, Charles tried to give NASA his findings, and they basically wouldn't listen to him.
So it's all very well, you know, for them to put all this data out, but then they just go and debunk it. So they may announce water one day, but then it's like they've never announced it. I mean, they just announced it again, you know, in 2011 they announced liquid water. And yet, you're going to see, I've got another slide from 1979 which talks of water on Mars. And this I've came across this quite recently. This is from Curiosity. It's a fairly recent picture. I can't remember the exact date that this was taken, but it was probably within the last year. And if you look at this thing here, somebody noticed that this looks like similar to the fossilised spine of a creature. I've got a close-up on the next slide here. I mean, you know, again, you go on the internet to look for this stuff, and you get all kinds of stuff. Most of it's pretty bad. You'll get pictures of rock formations on Mars, which they claim are like Nefertiti and various figureheads and stuff like this. But this is much more, I think, testable. You know, you can test some angles. You can compare it to other structures on Earth, much more definite, and I think that probably is some type of fossil that they've got there. Now we're going to have a look at some larger scale anomalies which are also present. And one of the first things, again, I included this in the original presentation partly because of the person involved. A lot of attention has been focused on Cydonia, which is the region of Mars. I will mention it briefly in this presentation that Richard Hoagland and a lot of other researchers have talked about. Cydonia is where the legendary face is on Mars, which I think is probably artificial, but I think it's one that is. I think there is more definite data than the face, to be honest, which I've got later coming up. But in let's see, 2001, Arthur C. Clarke, and he comes back into our story later as well, has stated in his beliefs about discoveries on Mars. On the 6th of June, he says, "I'm quite serious when I say have a really good look at these new Mars images." These are from Mars Global Surveyor. Something is actually moving and changing with the seasons and suggests at least vegetation, he said. Clarke repeated several times that he was serious about his observations, pointing out that he sees something akin to banyan trees in some of the Mars Global Surveyor photos. And here is one of those photographs. Here's the image reference, so you can Google that image reference and find this image on the USGS website. What the hell are these things? These sort of radial things. James Rice, a planetary geologist at Arizona State University, said, "Most of the images in question that I looked over are of dunes in the polar regions. They are beginning to defrost as winter draws to a close. The sand composing the dunes is dark and the frost is bright, thereby causing the spotted pattern as the dune defrosts. This is not vegetation, but rather the natural defrosting of dunes and sand sheets." Oh, really? Well, I think that's bogus myself. I don't know about you. There is some kind of definite organic structure here. Okay, and I think this video also indicates that this is another amateur researcher here.
Since 1997, the Mars Global Surveyor spacecraft has been imaging the surface of Mars. In at least 5 of the archived images, unusual circular rings with average diameters over 20 meters have been recorded near northern polar dunes. E20-01114 recorded September 2002. SP2-53807 recorded September 1998. M20-00416 recorded October 2000. SP2-50805 recorded August 1998. MOC2-147 is a NASA image showing a portion of image SP2-53807. M19-01495 recorded September 2000. The cause or origin of these unique features remains a mystery. NASA has proposed explanations such as exploding gas and springtime thawing of frozen CO2, but these theories usually come with the qualifiers speculation, thought to be, much remains unknown and not well understood. The existing theories raise more questions than answers. There is, however, another possibility, an explanation that's known to match ring shape to date, time, latitude, and surrounding surface features at multiple locations. Image SP2-53807 contains hundreds of rings in a field of small dunes. It was observed in this image that the orientation of ring elongation matched the direction of sunlight. Ring after ring after ring, precisely aligning with the sun. In addition to the alignment with sunlight direction, ring distortion or directional change was noted in cases where the rings transitioned from flat ground to sloped dune surfaces. These two qualities imply that the dark rings are shadows cast by features on the surface of the planet. To test this theory, a computer-generated 3D model of a shape that causes ring shadows was created. Mound dunes, a large Martian dune, and a crater were also modeled. Lighting angles and directions were generated for hourly intervals of a 24-hour solar cycle corresponding to latitude 76.7 north and a solar longitude of 79.0 degrees, where 0 degrees equals the beginning of spring and 9 degrees equals the beginning of summer. Shadows were then rendered by the computer. Cycling through the simulated Martian day, we see the rings changing shape dramatically as the sun inclination angle goes from a maximum of 23.0 degrees to a minimum of minus 3.6 degrees. To better compare the MGS images with computer simulation, a model of a portion of the image SP2-53807 was created. Once again, lighting inclination and direction were generated. At latitude 87.7 north and solar longitude of 25.8, this results in continuous sunlight with a minimum solar inclination of 6.3 degrees and a max inclination of 16.9 degrees. Pausing the model at what would be 3 o'clock Martian time, we can zoom in on individual rings to compare them to the NASA image taken at 2:30. Ring directional changes at transitions between flat ground and dune in the model matches the MGS images almost exactly. For the ring at the lower left of the model, in addition to the transition points matching, the bright white reflection of the dune can be seen through the center of the ring in both the model and the MOC image. A computer model was also created to simulate the conditions of image E20-01114. In this MGS image, 4 rings are visible against a large Martian dune. Identical material properties were applied to all components, and shadows were rendered for each hourly interval. As we cycle through several Martian days, we can see that at this latitude and season the sun never sets. Observe how ring shadows shorten against the dune, then lengthen on the flat ground. To make a side-by-side comparison of MOC image to model, the contrast in the MOC image was increased to bring out more detail. A bright bend was noted along the bottom of the MOC dune, so the slope of the dune model was increased to 30 degrees along the bottom, resulting in a visual match. Taking a closer look at the second ring from the left, the first thing worth noting is how the shadow-causing object nearly disappears against the ground. Contrasting this are the dark ring shadows and the bright dune reflections. Also, both the MOC image and the model rings are wide on the flat ground and thin on the dune slope. In addition, both model and MOC image display a hook on the right side as well as the bright dune reflection through their centers. MOC image M19-01495 offers two intriguing ring shapes. With the sunlight inclination of 25 degrees, it is difficult to imagine a feature that would produce a horseshoe-shaped reflective ring, especially considering this shape spans flat ground and dune slope. For example, a crater formation produces a frontal reflection and a crescent reflection in the back. One configuration that does produce a horseshoe shape is a layered mound or layered spherical structure. Light striking the back slope and sides will be reflected skyward, while light striking the front becomes trapped by layers above. This results in a gap in the bright reflective ring. Note how in the NASA image there is no white reflection on the sunny side of both features. The model shows a similar pattern. Also notice how dune reflections match in both the model and MOC image. Although not readily apparent in the top view of the SP2-53807 model or the shadow-rendered simulations, the ring-creating features were all modeled with a layered structure. A ground view in the direction of the yellow arrow allows this to be seen. A view from the middle looking right gives us another perspective. A view from top right toward bottom shows height in relation to the dunes. A ground view of the E20-01114 model reveals the same layered structure. Tree-like shapes on Mars may seem like an impossibility. However, this model with a layered construction similar to a spruce tree creates both bright reflective rings and dark shadow rings that closely match the various Mars Global Surveyor MOC images. All the elements needed for life are available at the northern polar locations. High concentrations of water in the form of ice, carbon dioxide, and sunlight. The recent discovery by the European spacecraft Mars Express of methane in the Martian atmosphere lends more support to the possibility of present-day life on Mars. For technical analysis of these images and several more dark spot images, visit the Mounds on Mars website.
Amateur research. That's done by an amateur researcher. NASA should be ashamed of themselves. Ashamed of themselves. But because we now have access to the technology, the same technology that they have, those that have got the skills and take the time and the trouble can prove these things. That is something very like trees on Mars. Something very like trees on Mars. I think that guy is dead on. I wrote to him, and he sent me back an acknowledgement, so I'm pretty sure he's a genuine guy. Alan Moen did that analysis. God knows how long it took him to build all the models, but that's what you call scientific analysis. Not, oh, well, we don't quite understand what it is, oh, well, it might be life, but we need more information, so let's spend another $1 billion. And then they should debunk that. It gets worse, I'm afraid, folks. On the left here, this, I forget the name of it, let's see if I can read it. Juventae Chasma. This is a region of Mars. I think you can see the obvious. It's a layered. This is on. I've got the image reference on ESA's website. I've done no processing on this. I've taken this image straight off the European Space Agency website, and I've just clipped out this portion. This is a mine workings. 2 minutes. This is mine workings on Mars. I'm convinced of that. You can even see they've got this little section here, reproduced here. Why don't ESA and NASA talk about this? Because they run a mile from this stuff. They just run away from it. I've shown some of these before. This is another one. I mean, this. I measured this. I've worked out. It's from the pixel resolution. This is 3 miles, dead straight 3 miles. And it intersects with the right angle. It actually looks like a raised structure, but it's not. It's a channel. And no one will talk about this image. I haven't seen any explanation for this image. But there's the image reference, SP243004. Google it. You can find it on USGS website. It's an unprocessed image. I haven't done anything to that, apart from paste it into the slide. Now this is my favourite. To me, I cannot escape that this is an artificial structure. For me, no ifs, ands or buts. This is artificial. I happen to think it's 530 metres across the crater there. So this dome is probably, about half that distance, maybe slightly less. 200 metres across, perhaps. And when I first came across this in 2004, I couldn't believe it. Nobody was talking about this image. Everyone was talking about the face. Yeah, right enough. They don't talk about this. I think this is what it could be, judging by the structure, a geodesic dome. Somebody posted this on a forum. It's quite a good comparison. This is the South Polar Base, the McMurdo Station, I think. And that's what it looks like when it's been weathered, and you can see the analysis. I found this on a message board. So that's very, very interesting analysis there, I think, or comparison, I should say. Now then, that picture was taken, I think, in 2001. I forget the exact date, because the USGS images don't always give the date that they were taken. It was either taken in 1998, 2000 or 2001. So it's over 10 years old, that dome image there, from Mars Global Surveyor. And as I said, if I picked up that on my monitor, I'd go up to the people in mission control with a gun and say, you're going to take more photographs of this. I don't care if you're going to use up all the fuel for orbital manoeuvres. You're going to get the closest photographs of this that you possibly can. Because this is the most interesting picture I've ever seen from Mars. And this is also near to it as well. Quite near. What the hell is this? I called it the caterpillar. That's my name for it. And if you look at what they've got on Mars Global Surveyor, is they've got something called the laser altimeter, MOLA, Mars Orbiter Laser Altimeter, MOLA data. So they actually measure the height of the ground. They can actually get a relief, an accurate relief, by bouncing laser light off the surface. If you go and try and access the MOLA data for that portion of the image, last time I looked, it was under peer review. It was inaccessible. You could not get the data for this portion of the image. I've got a short video clip here, and then maybe I'll do. That's all on one image strip. I think that's about 50, maybe 100 miles long. Go and Google it, download it, look at it yourself, see what you think. NASA ain't going to tell you anything about it. Now, because I think that's one of the most intriguing images of any space image that I've ever seen anywhere, at any time, I use it as my avatar on, Skype and eBay, because I want people to see that and say, what the hell is that? That's what I want them to say. I want to arouse their curiosity, all right, because it's so weird. Very few people do it, but I was actually on Skype to my brother, probably a while ago. I don't speak to him that often on Skype. And he says, Andrew, what the hell's that on your Skype image? And I thought, yes, somebody's asked. So I said, oh, well, if you want to know, do you know where it is? No, it's on Mars. Oh. He says, do you want to see the picture? All right, send me the link. So I sent him this link. When I first looked, because this image was a new image, I forgot, you might have guessed it from the caption. These are new 2008 images taken from another probe, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. We've had about 4 or 5 different probes tonight already. There's loads more. 5, I think, so far tonight we've referenced. Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, that took off 2007, I think. And look at the caption. Crater with textured mound. So I sent my brother the link to this page, which is on University of Arizona's website. It's a university website, it's NASA data. But when I sent him the link to this page, as I'd seen it, and I picked up that image, this image here, and the one on the next page, when he clicked on that page, that's what came up. I think I was talking to him in about May 2011. Caption's the same. Crater with textured mound. Looks like some uninteresting blobs to me. Now, sure enough, if you go down and look at these links at the bottom here, you'll find the image. You can dig it out. You've got to sort of hunt for it a bit, but it's still there. They haven't got rid of it. But why on earth are you going to change? As a university website meant to be looking at interesting things on Mars, why the hell are you going to change from that image, which is what's on that data for that page, to that? It can only be a cover-up. It can only be a cover-up. I cannot think of any other reason. It's like all these things. You paid millions of dollars, millions of pounds to look for a cure for cancer, but not find one. You paid billions of dollars to look for life on Mars, but not find it. It's the same scammery, the same mentality that's at work. It's exactly the same. So here's some close-ups of that to make it a bit larger. And you can see it almost looks less artificial, but you can still see it's a very spherical shape. And you've got this tube coming up out of it. Is this some kind of transit system or something? I have no idea. And that's an even closer version. And you can download in very high resolution images. That's something like 1 metre per pixel or something. I forget the exact figure. I think the other one was 7 metres per pixel. And these are 1 metre per pixel images. So it looks like something's got encrusted on the top of it, some crystallization or ice or something, I don't know. I shouldn't be postulating this. NASA should be working on this, telling us what it is. And this is that caterpillar thing. Again, I've no idea what it is. Very peculiar. And that's a close-up with some other structures there. Very, very high resolution images from the high-rise. So I just want to just finish this segment with this, because, and re-emphasise what I just told you about NASA and what not looking at it. So going back to 2004, I didn't even bother with the new images, the new high-res ones, but going back to 2004, I decided to do my own sort of experiment of psychology, I suppose. And I got those 2 images just like that, put them in an email, that's all the word, didn't give any other information, and I sent them to the Beagle 2 team. Because I got in touch with somebody from Beagle 2. They look like longitudinal dunes to me. It would be nice to get the topography, but Mars Express will only have about 1/3 of the resolution at this latitude. These are natural features, as with the face, which was subsequently shown to be a collection of hills. The human mind is, of course, pre-programmed by evolution to identify patterns and assimilate them into pictures we recognise. More data is required of such features to fully identify. Yeah, well, you've got the flipping data. You should go and look at it, man. So that was one response I got. Another one, I just got 42 geologists at random from university websites, just collected a load of email addresses, blasted this off, so apologised for intruding on their day and says, could you tell me what these images are? I've just sent them those 2 images, no links, nothing. They could have been taken, You know, could be a wart on my foot for all they knew. They didn't know what they were. So I wrote to this guy, and so he wrote back, assistant professor at American University Pathology Department, and he said, oh, first thing he asked, he got it right, he says, where did these images come from? So I sent him the links to the USGS website, right? The USGS website, which he should be familiar with, him being, you know, a geologist. Hi Andrew, these two images from the surface of Mars are certainly puzzling and have been floating around on UFO web pages for some time. I am sorry, but I do not believe in big conspiracy theories and that the government is trying to hide something from us concerning Mars or any other planet. That's not what I asked him. I said, what the hell is it? Div. And at the end he says, good luck with your investigations. Me? I'm not a flipping geologist. I don't work for NASA. I've just got a bloody website. It's you that's paid to look at this stuff. And this guy had even done some work on Mars, on peridotites or something. He was telling me about this. I'm not interested in that. What the hell is this dome, man?